It's hugely symbolic, and I think it speaks to the desire that each of these men has to dialogue.
Images signifying unity at a time when the world seems increasingly fractured.
Yeah, it feels like we need now more than ever that sort of message that you can get along with people of different faiths.
Do you believe that President Trump will manage to turn this into an actual peace for the Middle East?
I'm absolutely optimistic on this, but in any case, we're ready to provide all the help that is needed. I think the international community has to help him the maximum we can. So Italy is here to say we are ready.
Basically, what I think he's saying is that the Roman Empire will collapse, but its influence will continue, and it will manifest itself again in the final kingdom that will come in the end. You see, many see this last kingdom as literally a restoration of the Roman Empire. But I believe it represents something more subtle and diabolical. I think it represents the rebirth of the very spirit that animated the Roman Empire. The book of Revelation in chapter 16 calls it the throne of the king and the kingdom of the beast. He talks about a kingdom which he describes in verse 10 has this perennial nature to it. It existed in the past, it exists in the present, it exists in the future. And that's where it really becomes confusing, because when he talks about the beast that was and is not and so forth and so on, and we're just going, who in the world are we talking about here? But essentially what he's talking about is, he said there are 7 kings, that 5 have fallen.
Now, the timing here also important to know, Mugo, because this visit comes days after Prince Andrew just announced that he was dropping all of his royal titles after the royal family has been under a lot of intense scrutiny over Prince Andrew's ties with convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein.
Nearly 500 years ago, King Henry VIII severed England's ties with the Catholic Church. Today, that rift has been repaired, with Pope Leo and King Charles praying together at the Sistine Chapel, a symbolic step in the reconciliation between the Catholic and Anglican churches.
This is also about making history. Inside the Sistine Chapel, they prayed alongside each other. The first time a monarch and pontiff have done that for 500 years, since Henry VIII broke away from the Catholic Church. With King Charles also governor of the Church of England, the optics could not be more significant for relations between the two faiths.
What do we know about the significance of this visit?
Hey Mugo, good to see you too. So let's give you some context here. While we know King Charles has met with previous popes, he has never actually shared a prayer with them. So this is huge. It marks the first joint worship that the royals have had with the Pope in, get this, 500 years.
You can see from their interactions that you have 2 men who have shared interests and passions. But as it was pointed out to me by the head of the Catholic Church for England and Wales, you also have 2 heads of state who are currently wrestling with issues around historical sexual abuse hanging over their institutions and how best to approach those publicly. Certainly not afraid to meet the public. There will be relief that there were no updates on the Prince Andrew problem.
Of course, it's going to have some degree of overshadowing, but hopefully just the beauty of this event will outshine all of that darkness.
I mean, that's like a little gossip interest, but I think for the Romans this is a pretty big thing.
And that is where the jeopardy still lies for the royal family, as they try to draw our attention back to important moments like this.
In the heart of the Vatican, a moment half a millennia in the making. The Supreme Governor of the Church of England, alongside the head of the Catholic Church, praying publicly together.
Let us pray.
Swiss guards formed a guard of honour to greet the King and Queen as they arrived at the Vatican. Their Majesties then escorted inside the Apostolic Palace, meeting Pope Leo XIV for the first time.
Good morning. Welcome.
It's such a pleasure to meet you.
Queen Camilla dressed in a black outfit and black mantilla, a lace veil, a mark of respect for the pontiff. before the time came to enter the hallowed halls of the Sistine Chapel, the sacred space in which Pope Leo was elected to the papacy just 5 months ago. This moment of unity between Christian churches not seen in 500 years. Michelangelo's masterpiece bearing witness to the deeply symbolic service, focusing on a cause both the King and the Pope are passionate about, protecting the environment.
God our Father, you have created the heavens and the earth.
The Queen changing into white for a visit to the Papal Basilica St Paul's outside the walls, where the King was bestowed a new title, Royal Confrater. Outside, the royal couple were greeted like rock stars.
Italy loves you, Queen. Italy loves you. Grazie.
The King has long campaigned for building bridges between faiths, and today's visit is a moment in history for the Christian church and a key connection for the future.
I want to head over to Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt right now, where President Trump and leaders from around the world participated in that peace signing ceremony you saw earlier. Our Keir Simmons is there tonight. Keir, great to have you as well. So many leaders traveled to Egypt for this moment. How optimistic did it feel like, did it sound like the rest of the world is that this truce brokered by President Trump will hold?
Well, I think there was real optimism here, Tom, and also a real sense of relief. Like in so many places, many of the neighbors of Israel, Arab states, have felt that their much needed security, stability was being shaken by what was happening in Gaza. There was also, of course, a profound sense of understanding for the Palestinian people amongst many of the leaders of the countries that surround Israel. So there was all of that. And then I think there was also this sense of the power of the American presidency and the way President Trump utilizes it to get things done. An extraordinary moment, Tom. The Chancellor of Germany, waiting for hours for President Trump to arrive, walked over and stood and watched President Trump speaking in the Knesset on NBC News monitors on our live feed. That was something I'd never experienced before. And then after the meeting with the signing of the peace plan, as it's called by the Trump administration, then the Italian Prime Minister, Giorgia Meloni, came out, and I asked her about just that question about how sustainable this idea of this peace plan really is, how likely it is in practice to work out, if you like. And she was effusive in her support for President Trump.
Yeah, and we know a lot of leaders there want a Palestinian state, but Israel does not. President Trump has not really committed to that two-state solution. Yet they're backing Trump. So what do we draw from all that, Keir? That's somewhat confusing.
Yeah, it is, and I think, honestly, that some of this is to do with the personal connections that President Trump has with leaders, particularly in the Gulf, like the United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, Qatar. I think there is that at play. There are economic interests, clearly, but there are also questions about what happened. Prime Minister Netanyahu was not here today. There was a possibility that he would be here, and then the announcement from his office that he would not, because it's a holiday in Israel. I suspect, though, that he also at the same time did not relish the idea of potentially coming face to face with the president of the Palestinian Authority, Mahmoud Abbas. And I suspect that Arab leaders did not like the idea of seeing him here. They have been vitriolic in their criticism of him over recent months as the Gaza war has worn on. So that just underscores, Tom, the kinds of challenges, the kinds of divisions that will still be here tomorrow, the kinds of hurdles ahead if President Trump is to achieve his vision, his dream.
But he says there's a final world empire that will rise in the future in the last days. And he says the other, which he calls this last empire, has not yet come, John. He's not yet here. But when he does come, he must remain for a little while. And I believe this is talking about the kingdom of the beast in the last days.